In fact, we are asking you the question of the day as we eagerly await that budget speech by the minister. What economic or financial changes are you hoping for? We're asking you that question. Want you to share your expectations as well as your predictions for the upcoming budget. You can send us your comments on our platforms at the agenda_SABC, or you can call us on 011-714-0661 or 0662. All right, looking forward to your comments. Well, let's continue then to take a focus and look at what we can expect from the minister this afternoon. With an ailing economy, load shedding, household debt, unemployment and ballooning government debt are just some of the challenges facing South Africans. Now, joining us in studio to talk about the budget expectations is Tax Expert Musa Manyathi, Director for Tax at Deloitte Africa. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So a lot of expectations, of course, ahead of this budget, with the minister having very little, room to maneuver. I want you to just talk to us about, what we can expect from this budget. And more importantly, our economy is really not doing well. So what are your expectations?
Good morning, Unathi. It's a very difficult time to actually have this conversation. Just firstly, given the fact that it's an election year, and that alone just comes with obviously certain restrictions on what can be done and what cannot be done. If you look at where we are in terms of our economic spectrum, it's a perfect storm, right? We, as you were saying, we have power cuts that are still continuing and impacting business, impacting the economy. We have the logistic issues that we are currently battling with Transnet. In fact, two things have just recently happened, which is a testimony on how hard the economy is actually suffering from that. I'm sure you'll have heard that Kumba has recently come out and also said they are considering retrenchments, which is obviously the worst thing that one would expect to happen given our employment rate. But that is the effect of the hard economic conditions they are finding themselves. And Anglo Platinum also has said exactly the same thing. So that is actually telling you that the economy is going through really tough times. Absolutely.
It's just simply not growing. I mean, you just touched on something now. With this being an election year, it is quite a crucial year. So what should the minister then touch on? What are the significant things that we should be hearing, from his budget? Another matter, of course, that is of concern is the fact that we are still looking at this limited revenue collection. That is something that is also of great concern for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you are asking what the minister should be saying. There are a couple of things the minister could be saying, but within the restrictions of it being an election year. So under normal circumstances, we'll be expecting the minister to be saying there's going to be more spending on the infrastructure, because that's certainly what we're needing, right, to propel our economy to a more positive trajectory. We will also be expecting the minister to really be focusing on, the state-owned entities and what needs to be happening there. And not necessarily the bailouts here, but just the things that could be done to make sure that those entities are functioning properly, because they are really at the center of our economy, right? Especially
Transnet. We saw how Eskom has been continuously, bailed out. Now that certain interventions have somewhat, succeeded, but interestingly enough, this time around, one would want to see some form of changes in Transnet. So, what is likely then, to happen in that front as it pertains to Transnet?
So, at least certain measures have already been put into place, because the private sector has come in and been trying to assist the Transnet to deal with the major problems that they are facing. So one would expect that trajectory should actually continue. But then coming back to the point you were mentioning around, the tax collection, that's a huge thing, right? And the question is what is possible there. We know because the minister during the medium-term budget policy statement told us that he's going to be asking for an additional 15 billion. So we know that, that's the expectation there, that an additional 15 billion should be raised. Where is that going to be coming from is the question. So let me paint you a picture which is going to basically address that question. So if you look at... But
as you're painting that picture, I think what's important also for South Africans is also to know that, can we expect a personal income tax, to change? Can we expect a rise, in terms of income tax? As you explain what that scenario is likely to look like.
Okay, so let me start exactly there because I was going to go there. So if you look at the picture of our personal income taxes, the challenge we're having right now is that the taxpayer is seriously struggling. We're talking about the high interest rates, we're talking about the high standard of living, we're talking about the high cost of living. So at the moment, if you look and think, is it possible that somehow the taxpayer will be able to bear an additional tax rate, for example, increase in the additional tax rate? It's clear that that is not going to be possible because at the moment, in fact, the minister, I think it was at the Davos World Economic Forum, he said he wasn't completely ruling out an increase in the tax rate, but he also accepted that that's going to be very difficult. So I think if you look at that landscape of personal income taxes, there is absolutely no way that any tax increases are going to be happening there.
And what about the value-added tax? Any increases there? Do you predict?
So look, that's always going to be the interesting one, right? Firstly, because it's politically loaded, and in an election year, you have got to really be very bold to want to interfere with that one, but also because it's more regressive. So the people that really end up suffering are actually the poor of the poorest, which should be protected. So it's highly unlikely that we will be seeing any increase in the VAT rate. The other one I just quickly wanted to touch on is the corporate income tax, that being the third largest contributor to the tax collection. So if you look at what has recently happened there, we have reduced the tax rate, right, from 28 to 27%. The intention being to try and bring some direct foreign investment, which is exactly what we need. So from what the minister actually said in 2022, he was saying we should be looking more at, over time, that being reduced, which isn't going to happen right now, just given where we are. What's happening in our economy, so that's impossible.
Musa, as we wrap our conversation, another, of course, thorny issue is the fact that state debt remains incredibly high. What is likely there to happen? I mean, we can't afford to borrow more money, can we?
That's a tough one, right? Because you have only two options: you increase economic activities, you collect more taxes, and then you do not have to borrow because we have sufficient to live on. But unfortunately, that's not where we are. And we still have a lot of expenditures that are already committed.
And there's the issue of austerity measures.
Absolutely. So you will still, unfortunately, require some money to come through. And what are the likelihood? The likelihood is that you will have to go out to the market and borrow this money, because otherwise you do not have sufficient tax collection to give you a buffer.
Simply put, there's very little room for the minister to maneuver. But thank you so much, Musa, for your time this morning. Really do appreciate it. Of course, there you have it. We continue to give you more analysis here ahead of the minister's much anticipated budget speech. That was Tax Expert Musa Manyathi, Director for Tax at Deloitte Africa. All right, let's take a quick break at this point. We'll be back straight after this. Stay with us.